All right, today we're going to talk about a weird problem, a paradox really, that's hitting a lot of CPA firms. You're so good at what you do that you're buried in work, but that success is actually stopping you from growing. It's like you've hit a ceiling. So how do you break through? Let's dive in. So if you're running a CPA firm, does this sound familiar? You're just constantly juggling deadlines, trying to keep clients happy, and, just searching for one extra hour in the day. It really feels like you're on a treadmill that just won't stop. But here's a thought. What if the problem isn't how hard your team is working? What if the real issue is the system they're working in? And this really gets to the heart of it all. So many people think the problem is finding new clients, right? That's the myth. Gotta get more business. But the reality? You're already drowning in work. The real challenge isn't getting more work, it's handling the work you already have. It's about building a machine that can actually manage the success you've created. Okay, so let's unpack what's really holding you back. When you boil it all down, it comes down to two big bottlenecks, two major pressures that I bet are going to sound really, really familiar. First up, compliance. Man, this thing is a moving target. It used to be you could sort of master the tax code, right? Not anymore. Now it's this constantly changing storm of new regulations, IRS updates, state-specific rules. It's like trying to hit a tiny target in a hurricane. Just keeping up feels like a full-time job in itself. And what happens if you fall behind? Well, it's not pretty. We're not talking about a little slap on the wrist here. We're talking about hours and hours of expensive rework, a much higher chance of your clients getting hit with a painful audit, and maybe worst of all, you start losing that trust you've spent years building. Which brings us to the second bottleneck. And honestly, this one might be even bigger. It's not about skill. You've got plenty of that. It's a simple, brutal lack of capacity. There just are not enough hours in the day, not enough hands on keyboards to get all the work done. So the obvious answer seems pretty simple, right? Need more capacity, just hire more people. But as I'm sure many of you have found out the hard way, that's a lot easier said than done. Because let's be real, hiring is its own kind of hamster wheel. First, finding good people takes forever. Then salaries are just going through the roof. And the real kicker? When you finally land someone, you have to take your best, most productive people off their work to train the new person, which actually slows you down. You throw the chaos of tax season on top of all that, and, well, you've got a perfect recipe for total burnout. So, if the old way of just throwing more people at the problem is broken, what's the answer? Well, the firms that are really winning are making a huge strategic shift. They're not just tweaking things, they are completely changing how their business operates. And the data is super clear on this. The firms that are actually breaking through that growth ceiling, the ones that are scaling and not just burning out, they're the ones that rethink how work actually flows. They stop trying to solve a system problem by adding more people. They finally realize you can't just throw more bodies at a broken process. You've got to fix the process itself. And this new way of thinking has a name. It's called the blended delivery model. Now, this is crucial. It is not about replacing your team. It's about making them even better. Here's how it works. Your in-house experts, your stars, they focus on the big picture stuff, strategy, client relationships, the final sign-off. Meanwhile, a skilled, dedicated offshore team handles all that predictable, time-consuming work. It's really the best of both worlds. You get this massive boost in capacity, but you don't give up any control. All right, that's the big idea. But what does this actually look like in practice? Let's get into the nitty-gritty and look at 3 core services to see how this completely transforms a firm's capacity. First up, let's talk about audit support. This is a super high-stakes area. Precision is everything. Documentation has to be perfect, especially when things get crazy busy. So just imagine your next busy season, but without all the late nights and chaos. That's what a blended model does for audit. It smooths out those insane workload spikes. Your offshore team can grind through the time-consuming stuff like preparing work papers and doing routine tests. This frees up your senior auditors to focus their brainpower where it really matters, on high-risk areas and making those tough judgment calls. Okay, next application, personal tax returns. We all know this is a game of volume and deadlines. Efficiency here is everything. It goes straight to your bottom line. For personal tax, this is an absolute game changer. Seriously, you could double, maybe even triple, the number of returns you handle with the exact same internal team. But here's the best part. You're changing the very nature of their job. Your people go from being data entry clerks to being actual strategic advisors. They're spending way less time on tedious input and more time finding those valuable deductions and credits that make your clients love you. And for our third example, let's look at payroll. This is probably one of the most sensitive services you offer, right? The responsibility is huge, and the margin for error is, well, it's zero. When it comes to payroll, it's all about trust. A blended model gives you a dedicated team of specialists who live and breathe this stuff. They're always on top of the latest regulations, which slashes the risk of making a costly mistake. What does that mean for you? It means you can offer a totally rock-solid, reliable payroll service to even more clients, making your firm absolutely essential to their business. Okay, so the model sounds great, but making it actually work, that takes a plan. How do you do this and scale up with confidence while making absolutely sure you're still in the driver's seat? And this is it. This is the number one question, the biggest fear that firm leaders have. If I outsource the work, does that mean I'm losing control over the quality and my client relationships? The answer is a very clear, very loud no. And here's the key distinction. You are delegating tasks, not responsibility. The final review, the critical sign-off, that always stays with your firm. Think of it this way. Your offshore team is a powerful extension of your own team, a tool that you control completely. They're not a replacement. Look, success here isn't about luck. It's all about structure. It really comes down to these 4 pillars. 1, you need documented workflows, so there's a clear process. 2, you need to find roles, so everyone knows who does what. 3, you need ironclad security protocols to protect that precious client data. And 4, you need regular quality reviews to make sure everything is perfect. You get those 4 things right, the system just works. So if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. Sustainable growth isn't about working harder. It's about building a smarter system. It's not about burning out your best people just to keep up. It's about creating an intelligent, scalable operation that does the heavy lifting for you. So the only real question is, where are you going to start?